I never covered this, but a few days ago of me recording this video, BMJ investigation, which is highly touted sort of independent, what do you call them, platform, if you will, that speaks to whistleblowers and other stuff that's going on even in medicine and everything else. And this was something that it didn't really make its round on mainstream media, despite it coming from the BMJ. So you think that it would. And I haven't seen many people talking about it. So I want to make sure that we do this. So this is what it said. And this is what Paul D. Thacker of the BMJ Investigate says. Revelations of poor practices at a contract research company helping to carry out Pfizer's pivotal COVID-19 vaccine trial raised questions about data integrity and regulatory oversight. This is what happens. In autumn 2020, Pfizer's chairman and chief executive, Albert Bourla, released an open letter to the billions of people around the world who were investing their hopes in a safe and effective, you heard that term many times, COVID's vaccine to end the pandemic. As I've said before, we are operating at the speed of science. Bourla wrote explaining to the public when they could expect Pfizer to be authorized in the United States. This is again, autumn 2020. But the researchers who were testing Pfizer's vaccine at several sites in Texas during that autumn, speed may have come at the cost of data integrity and patient safety. Wow, who would have thought? A regional director who was employed at the research organization, Ventavia Research Group, has told BMJ, again, whistleblower, that the company falsified data, unblinded patients, employed inadequately trained vaccinators, and was slow to follow up on the adverse events reported in Pfizer's pivotal phase 3 trial. Staff who conducted quality control checks were overwhelmed by the volume of problems that they were finding. The fact, again, this comes from the BMJ. This isn't like some fucking rink-a-dink site that I'm reading this from, okay? You'd think they would have been all over this shit. And I had to remind myself, I almost got swept up in it like, wait a minute, there was a story that I meant to cover a few days ago that I never got around to. After repeatedly notifying Ventavia of these problems, the regional director, Brooke Jackson, emailed a complaint to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Ventavia fired her later the same day. Jackson has provided the BMJ with dozens of internal company documents, photos, audio recordings, and emails. Maybe that's just a coincidence that this person emailed Brooke Jackson, who was a regional director, emailed the FDA, and then Ventavia, the research group, fucking fired her. I think that's maybe just a coincidence or something like that. I don't know. Poor laboratory management. This is one of the topics. A few of these. On its website, Ventavia calls itself the largest privately owned clinical research company in Texas. Remember, privately owned often doesn't mean that. And it lists many awards it has won for its contract work. It's always funny. We get contracts from the government or institutions that are funded by the government, then reroute that money to us, and we're private. It's like they do at prisons. They say private prisons. It's fucking, no. You're state funded and controlled by quasi. But Jackson has told BMJ during the 2 weeks she was employed at Ventavia in September 2020, she repeatedly informed her superiors of poor laboratory management, patient safety concerns, and data integrity issues. Jackson was a trained clinical trial auditor who previously held a director of operations positions and came to Ventavia with more than 15 years experience in clinical research, coordination, and management. Exasperated that Ventavia was not dealing with the problems, Jackson documented several matters late one night, taking photos on her mobile phone One photo provided to the BMJ showed needles discarded in plastic biohazard bag instead of sharp container box. Another showed vaccine packaging materials with trial participants' identification numbers written on them left out in the open, potentially unblinding participants. Which, again, when you're trying to do a controlled trial, that fucking defeats the purpose. Ventavia executives later questioned Jackson for taking the photos. Early in an inadvertent, unblinding may have occurred on a far wider scale. According to the trial's design, unblinded staff were responsible for preparing and administering the study drug, Pfizer's vaccine, or placebo. This was to be done to preserve the blinding of the trial participants and all other site staff, including the principal investigator. However, at Ventavia, Jackson told the BMJ that the drug assignment confirmation printouts were being left in participant charts accessible to the blinded personnel. That literally would defeat the purpose of all the studies, or that particular study that personnel is part of. As a corrective action taken in September, 2 months into the trial recruitment, and around 1,000 participants already enrolled, quality assurance checklists were updated with instructions for staff to remove assignments from the chart. In a recording of a meeting in late September 2020 between Jackson and two directors at Ventavia Executive, can be heard explaining that the company wasn't able, this is in a recorded meeting, by the way, wasn't able to quantify the types and numbers of errors they were finding when examining the trial paperwork for quality control. In my mind, it's something new every day. A Ventavia executive says, we know that is significant. Okay, wait a minute. The company that is responsible for the vaccine that is used a lot in the West has studies which they sold this vaccine on, in which some of the data basically that they have been collected potentially, and it sounds like even this executive concedes, was fucked. Ventavia was not keeping up with the data entry queries, shows an email sent by ICON, the contract research organization which Pfizer partnered on the trial. ICON reminded Ventavia in a September 2020 email, the expectation for this study is that all queries are addressed within 24 hours. ICON then highlighted over 100 outstanding queries older than 3 days in yellow. Examples included 2 individuals for which subject has reported with severe symptoms reactions. Per protocol, subjects experiencing grade 3 local reactions should be contacted. Please confirm if an unplanned contact was made and update the corresponding form as appropriate. According to the trial protocol, the telephone contact should have occurred. 2, assertion further details and determine whether a site visit is clinically indicated. Here's another one. So now they worry over the, because of this whistleblower, worries over the FDA inspection. Documents show that these problems have been going on for weeks, and a list of action terms circulated among Ventavia leaders in early August 2020, shortly after the trial began and before Jackson's hiring. A Ventavia executive identified 3 site staff members with whom go over e-diary issue falsifying data, falsifying data, that is. One of them verbally counseled for changing data and not noting late entry. At several points during the late September meeting, Jackson and the Ventavia executive discussed the possibility of the FDA showing up for an inspection. We're going to get some letter of information at least when the FDA gets here. More concerns raised. And there's more of this. Again, you can go read this right at the BMJ. I've already given you the title. Researcher blows the whistle on data integrity issues in vaccine trial. That is the name of it. If you want to check this out yourself, let's talk about the concerns raised and get out of here. In her September 25th email, To the FDA, Jackson wrote that Ventavia had enrolled more than 1,000 participants at 3 sites. The full trial enrolled around 44,000 participants across 153 sites that included numerous commercial companies, academic centers, and what have you, including participants placed in a hallway after injection and not being monitored by clinical staff, lack of timely follow-up of patients who experienced adverse events, protocol deviations not being reported, vaccines not being stored at proper temperatures, mislabeled laboratory specimens, targeting of Ventavia staff for reporting these types of problems. Within hours, Jackson received an email from the FDA thanking her for her concerns and notifying her that the FDA could not comment on any investigation that might result. A few days later, Jackson received a call from the FDA inspector to discuss her report, but was told that no further information could be provided. She heard nothing further in relation to her report. So she tried to let the FDA in on this. In Pfizer's briefing document submitted to the FDA Advisory Committee meeting held on December 10th, 2020, to discuss Pfizer's application for emergency use authorization of its COVID-19 vaccine, the company made no mention of the problems at the Ventavia site. The next day, the FDA issued authorization of the vaccine. There's more in there, of course, that we mentioned and left out. But long story short, and again, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that without a shadow of a doubt, everything that this person is saying is clean and everything being said was as it was stated. This is a whistleblower after all. But the fact that, again, BMJ, they wouldn't have just brought this up if they thought that it wasn't somewhat credible. As I mentioned, they have emails and they have vocal coverings that at least seem to point to the fact that they knew there were some problems there. Now, did they go addressed? Doesn't sound like it. So the issues that seem to come from this, and again, this is the part where are we sacrificing speed and getting it authorized and hurry up and getting it out over safety? Look, I'm not here to tell you what to think, but I do think this is something worth looking into. And it's not just because I'm in the position that I'm in. But certain events don't make any fucking sense, and they haven't. So when that happens, and we've documented all those, I'm not going to bore you with the details on all of the shit that happens with this that just doesn't make any sense. You look at what all these people have to gain for kicking this can down the road. The pharmaceutical companies such as Pfizer, for this can being perpetually kicked, and people having to be relying upon what they give. Again, we're paid to do by way of the government. It's worth looking into everything to make sure this is something that is legitimate. And if you care about health and safety, accurate data, it needs to be there in order to determine. It's like, why are there so many instances of this in this like, what would you call it? Whatever weird sort of methodology that they're using to justify even in stuff in kids, using this on kids. And but a lot of shit just simply doesn't make sense. There's data not being collected. OSHA, they're trying to make sure all these businesses need to ensure that their employees are vaccinated. OSHA says because they don't want to basically to deter people from getting the vaccine, they're not going to collect any workplace like instances of vaccine related sort of adverse effects. They're not even documenting that. CDC comes out, hey, we're not even going to document. We're not going to keep a hold of or require people keep hold of breakthrough data that is not associated with hospitalization or death. Why on earth, if this is about science, well, the data is so important, why on earth would they do that? It forces us to look into other instances because we have to try to put the pieces together to make this shit make fucking sense. And this ain't about being anti-vax. It ain't about being pro-vax. It's about the goddamn truth at the end of the day. Pay attention. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.